morning. Welcome to regular council meeting for the Township of Minden Hills for Thursday, August 28th, 2025. In reviewing today's agenda, there's one public meeting regarding a zoning bylaw amendment, as well as there will be a closed session meeting that will take place near the end of our regular meeting. Madam Clerk, please proceed with a roll call.
Councillor Sisson.
Present.
Councillor Saini. Present. Councillor McKelvey. Present. Councillor Johannesson.
Present.
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 Mayor Carter.
Present. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Minden Hills is located on Treaty 20 Michisagi territory and in the traditional territory of the Michisagi and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. I call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. Madam Clerk, please proceed with reading the resolution for the approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Johannesson, seconded by Councillor Saini. Be it resolved that the August 28th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we move directly into our planning meeting, public meeting. So we need our manager of planning. And we have somebody joining us via Zoom. Okay, today there is one public meeting held by council under section 34 of the Planning Act, being for application PLZBA 2025062. And I call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Moved by Councillor Saini, seconded by Councillor Johannesson, that council adjourn its regular council meeting at 9:02 a.m. to proceed into public meeting regarding the following: Report 25-58, Planning, Zoning Bylaw Amendment PLZBA 2025062, Ezer.
All those in favor? That is carried. Once more with feeling. I call this meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. Today, there is one public meeting held by council under section 34 of the Planning Act, being for application PLZBA 2025062. The public meeting is an opportunity to present to council and the public the details and background to the proposed amendment and to receive comments from the public and agencies before a council decision is made. If a person would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions before the bylaw is passed, the person is not entitled to appeal the decision. So this public meeting is declared open and is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment for Part Lot 28 Concession 5 in the geographic township of Snowden, having municipal address 1014 Bumblebee Lane. Would the planning department please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Through the mayor, the subject application was submitted by the property owner, Mr. Adam Ezer of Ezer Professional Corp. The property is developed in the form of a one-story recreational cabin built in approximately 1975. It has a wraparound deck along the north, east, and south, and steps at the north and east sides. As existing, the cabin is located 3.66 meters from the high water mark of Burnt River to the north and 11.28 meters from the high water mark of Devil's Creek to the east. There is a frame shed and a sauna deck to the west of the cabin. Water supply is provided by the river, and the site is serviced by private individual septic system. The property owner is proposing to extend the ground level deck 10.35 square meters along the west side of the cabin and to relocate the northern stairs. The owner is also proposing a 30.84 square meter second story addition that is 2.32 meters in height, along with a 20.49 square meter wraparound deck that is along the west, north, and east sides of the proposed second level. This will be located within the cabin's existing and proposed building footprint, and the application also includes site plans, building plans to illustrate the development as proposed. As a result of the ground level deck expansion, the total ground floor area will increase from approximately 70.12 square meters to 80.47 square meters. And the second level addition will increase the cabin height from 5.2 meters to 7.52 meters. No further encroachment into the high water mark setback of Burnt River or Devil's Creek is proposed. The amendment is required as non-compliant buildings are not permitted to increase in either size or height when located within 15 meters of a shoreline. Under policies of the PPS, the subject property is defined as rural lands. The subject property is also designated rural land in the County of Haliburton official plan. Policies of both of these documents permit limited residential uses that can be sustained by rural service levels, which have already been established on the subject lands for over 50 years. While the property is not identified within a hazard land in the County of Haliburton or Township of Minden Hills official plans, a desktop review of the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority mapping was conducted for information. The floodplain mapping is not yet in effect and therefore cannot be used to assess development applications. However, brief review of the provincial policy for hazardous lands and municipal policy for shoreline development as it relates to the application has been completed, as the mapping will identify the property within the floodway of the Burnt River. The PPS policies for hazardous lands provide that development shall generally be directed away from hazardous lands and sites, and also restricts development in areas that would be rendered inaccessible to people and vehicles during times of flooding hazards, erosion hazards, or dynamic beach hazards, unless it has been demonstrated that the site has safe access that is appropriate for the nature of the development and the natural hazard. Regarding the proposed development expansion, the residential use of the property is already established and developed with a legal non-compliant cabin. A desktop review of the aerial photography demonstrated flooding events occurring in 2013 and 2018, where some of the property experienced flooding, but the cabin itself did not. The current location of the cabin is considered to be the preferred location, and safe access from the site in the event of a flood would be the same as it exists today. The subject property is designated waterfront on Schedule A of the Township's official plan. The waterfront designation permits recreation-based residential uses which are limited to single detached dwellings in the form of shoreline linear development that is serviced by private individual water and sewage systems. Policies of the Township official plan also encourage a balance between development and natural shoreline, typically enforcing a 30-meter setback to the shoreline and consideration for building design and visual impacts. Given the existing high watermark setback of the cabin from the watercourse, the surrounding natural heritage features, and existing vegetation along the shoreline, there is no further reduction proposed by the application or permitted. As the intended increase in site size and height is in keeping with the character of the waterfront where it is proposed, the application is considered to maintain the general intent of the official plan. The subject property is zoned rural RU zone in the township's zoning bylaw 06-10. Permitted uses in the rural zone include a single detached dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit, provided that a lot has a minimum area of 2 hectares, a frontage of 100 meters, as well as a high watermark setback of 23 meters for a lot that is created prior to February 22nd, 2005. Provisions of the proposed shoreline residential SR zone permit the use of a single detached dwelling as a principal use, provided that a lot has a minimum area of 4,000 square meters, a frontage of 60 meters, as well as a high watermark setback of 23 meters for a lot that is created prior to February 22nd, 2005. The proposed site-specific shoreline residential exception 81 zoning will address the existing deficient frontage and legal non-compliant cabin, ensuring that the existing shoreline setbacks are maintained. The zoning will permit the ground level deck expansion along the west side of the cabin, as well as a second story addition and decks within the cabin's existing and proposed building footprint. The proposed shoreline residential exception zone will better reflect the use of the lands in context of the waterfront location as compared to that of the current rural zone. With respect to the lot coverage, the proposed increase does not exceed the maximum permissions of the zoning bylaw for otherwise compliant dwellings, where a maximum of 50% is permitted. The proposed cabin height is also 7.52 square. The proposed cabin height is 7.52 meters, which is not otherwise permitted by section 4.84 due to the location of the dwelling within 15 meters of the shoreline. However, the proposed building will comply with the height regulations of the shoreline residential zone for a complying building or structure, whereby a maximum of 11 meters is permitted. Additionally, the tree cover along the shoreline will mitigate visual impact, and the second level will maintain the same gross floor area and building footprint as the main floor, which has been established for over 50 years. The property is constrained by the lot configuration, where expanding towards the water which surrounds the property will create further non-compliance. Therefore, a vertical expansion is preferred to ensure that no additional impacts from a lateral expansion, and there is no concern for the proposed increase in height. We do also want to advise council that the draft amendment, which was initially published in the agenda, indicated a setback of 11.7 meters to Devil's Creek. However, this was a typo. The amendment and agenda were therefore revised with the corrected setback, which now reads 11.2 meters. Notice of today's public meeting was circulated on August 7th in accordance with the Planning Act. No agency comments have been received. We received a written letter of support submitted by the applicant on behalf of the owner, which was circulated to council. The letter of support describes the existing dwelling and servicing and the intent to improve the usable space, value, and living condition through renovation and increasing the building size and height. Additionally, an email was submitted by an adjacent landowner, which was also circulated to council. The email describes privacy concerns regarding the second level overlooking their property. No other comments have been otherwise received from members of the public.
Does the applicant have a presentation or wish to make any comments? Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just state your name and address for the record, and then start with your presentation.
Of course, thank you. My name is Adam Ezer, E-Z-E-R. I'm presently in California, but my address is 2204 Queen Street East, Unit 4, Toronto, Ontario, M4E1E7. In my presentation, I submitted a letter. In my submission, this is a very small cabin. It's just over 300 square feet. I submitted the listing from when it was purchased in 2014. It is listed as a one-bedroom, but that realtor didn't sell it. I bought it from Vic Spring, who I don't think is a realtor anymore at this point, but it is a 0-bedroom. I had him look at it in the pandemic after I'd done significant renovation already to add a washroom and the ability to access that washroom from the cabin without going outside. And Mr. Spring told me it is, in fact, a 0-bedroom because it's only one room aside from the washroom. And this will, in fact, make it a 1-bedroom, as I understand it, and still small at about 650 square feet. I read the planning report last night. I understand that the report supports the proposal. If I don't have the email that was referred to, I do have emails with Rachel Godley, or I believe Goldley. I can look in any case, she's the adjacent property owner. We've been emailing the last few days. She told me she was not going to oppose this application for whatever that's worth. Subject to any questions, I made my comments as well in the letter. I believe that this development will improve the property for myself and for others, and will provide further tax revenue on an annual basis to the municipality, and that it's consistent with bringing a cabin from the 1970s really into this century. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? We have nobody. Are there any questions or comments from council to the applicants, the planner, or anybody else who has made an application? Councillor McKelvey?
Just a clarification. Diana was listing off the setbacks from the high water mark of, so I just want to clear, I thought she said 11.2 meters from Devil's Creek. Because the bylaw says 11.7, so I just want to make sure we haven't.
Through Mr. Mayor, so the original published one did say 11.7, but it's been updated to say 11.2. That was a typo.
But the bylaw says 11.7.
I believe there was a republished one. I'll refer
That's
to the
correct. It was
deputy.
republished yesterday afternoon.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Saini?
Just if I may ask, the climate change is really changing where these watermarks are going to have an effect. And I want to make sure that the owner is aware of those possibilities, and also that we're not going to be liable for any kinds of situations in the future, depending on how that river goes up and down, and some of the issues that could stem from that. So I just want to put that on the table and be clear with everybody if they're informed and well informed about that. I'm a bit familiar with that road, and it is a silly place to begin, but I can see that it's a good way also to get your foot in the door and build a cottage there. So just to clarify if the people are aware of that.
Councillor Sisson?
I see that the former railway runs right through this property. Is that a right of way, or is that deeded to this property?
Through Mr. Mayor, I will refer either to Mr. Ezer or Wills, but I believe that that right of way was extinguished. But I will ask Mr. Ezer to properly clarify.
So, Mr. Ezer, did you hear that?
Sorry, I just wanted to unmute there. Thank you. Yes, to address that issue, my architect advises that the property rights go right to the water in this case. So there is no right of way as far as the numbers provided. And if I may say to the other comment as well, I understand and appreciate the possibility for change. And I meant to mention this, and just one comment, if I may, which is that this is an investment which would further 100,000 by the time things probably go over. And I want to put that money above the water line, and with real hardwood floors, for example. And in my view, putting the money on a second level is really outside the flood zone, aside from perhaps a Noah's Ark type situation. But we, as the property owner, I'll put on the record that this is not the municipality's liability. Thank you.
No more questions. As a result of these proceedings, does the planning department have any recommendations or comments that you wish to bring to the attention of council?
Through the mayor, the staff report recommended that council receive report 25-58 planning as information, and further that bylaw 2558 being a bylaw to approve a zoning bylaw amendment for the lands subject of PLZBA 2025062 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
Okay, If there are no further questions, this completes the public meeting process. Anyone wishing to obtain notice of the decision may do so by making a written submission requesting such to the township's clerk. I now declare this portion of the public meeting closed at 9:20 a.m. Thank you all. Please read the resolution and return to regular meeting.
Moved by Counselor Johansson, seconded by Counselor Saney, that council adjourned its public meeting and resumes its regular council meeting at 9:20 a.m.
All those in favor? That is carried. Adoption of minutes. Are there any, look, we're the August 14th regular council meeting. Any comments or amendments? Please proceed with reading the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Johansson, seconded by Counselor Saney. Be it resolved that council approves the August 14th, 2025 regular council meeting minutes.
All those in favor? That is carried. Payment of accounts. Are there any questions or comments? Counselor McKelvey?
Just that I see we're still renting the container office at the Kim Mount Roads yard. I realize Mr. Timmons isn't here, but perhaps is the new building coming soon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll follow up and provide council with an update on that.
Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney. Be it resolved that the accounts in the amount of $486,361.07 be approved for payment.
All those in favor? That is carried. In the mayor's report, I'd like to start off by extend council's appreciation to the Rotary Club of Minden because they have donated some equipment to the SG Nesbitt Arena. These are great additions and will enhance our recreation program, being drop-in, registered, and camp program. So thank you, Rotary Club, for the generous donation. Talking about AMO, AMO meeting was again the largest AMO meeting they have had. One of the things that seems to have occurred is that in terms of delegations, back at Roma in January, it was very difficult to get a delegation. And I don't know if they on purpose did this, but they had a record number of delegations. I think it was over 850 delegations. That that meant that the delegations were spread out to a couple of hotels, plus the Rogers Center, which made for lots of walking. I know on Monday night, my watch said I had gone 11,501 steps, and I felt every one of them. And I believe that Deputy Mayor Shell also had record walking counts. We were involved in a number of delegations, and some were combination delegations between the county and CKL. Others were county, and then we had a delegation on our own for Minden Hills. Just briefly going over them. In conjunction with CKL, we met with the Minister of Education, and this is Minister Candelara, who is new to the portfolio, and our real, I don't know, the real direction of the delegation was concerning childcare spaces, and particularly the ability to have childcare in private homes or in small groupings. Unfortunately, some of the regulations that exist today concerning water make it almost cost prohibitive to do something in a private home. I believe that right now, if I'm not mistaken, we have probably a couple of hundred spots that could be opened up almost immediately if it were not for this barrier. The minister was not aware of this, although some of his staff was. And unfortunately, this is regulations that don't come from the Ministry of Education, but come from the Ministry of Environment. They did say that they would have some discussions, and we will follow up with them to see what can be done. We also met with Minister Kennedy and the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, which when you get right down to thinking about it is a fairly broad ministry consisting of things that don't necessarily go together. Our concern there was with the Blue Box program and the effect that the new regulations have on particularly nonprofits and small businesses that are, outside of town. We noted our 850 square kilometers, and I used my traditional prop of a Diet Coke can that said that Diet Coke can was, is one thing if it was consumed in a residence in an area, and another thing if it was consumed at a business. We had, I think, good recognition from the minister and his staff, and they told us that they were doing further consultations with its circular materials. But what they told us, or what they believed was happening and what may actually be happening, is not necessarily the same thing. So we are going to continue to work with them. The question also came up at the minister's forum, and there was one thing that the minister said in response was that this Blue Box diversion program was meant for, private and individual homes. Okay, it was not meant for business. I think was it the city of Kitchener? Or some, it was one of the areas where this was extended to businesses, and then that was expanded pretty much across the property. So don't know if the government is going to say, hey, we never said businesses were included or what. So we will continue to follow up on them, because it's very, very unfair for small businesses, particularly if you're not in a village or somewhere where it's easy to get a pickup. We also met with Jill Dunlop in the Ministry of Emergency Preparedness. There's a little bit of this is a new department, new ministry. They're doing lots of good work. They certainly have a lot of energy. It's a bit difficult because by law, emergency preparedness is really a federal responsibility. So they are meeting with the feds, I think, in the next month or so, and they're trying to figure out who does what. We worked with the county on this issue. There were a number of things that we brought up, including when we had our emergency in March, April, when we lost telephone service, we lost Bell. Rogers was still operating. So there is a technological way whereby 911 service could automatically be switched from Bell to Rogers, but the CRTC would have to add some, I don't know, moral suasion or pressure on the companies to work together. And so we asked them to to try to do that. We also asked them to look at the situation. We had some issues with propane in particular. Now that all the small companies have been bought up by larger groups, in some cases, if you called their call center may not necessarily have been local or even in this country. So they didn't really have an appreciation for the issues that we were having. So we're asking them to in that case, to look at the situation with propane like they do with other things such as electricity and so on, and have some more rules about that. We also asked for money for a generator. Unfortunately, the grant programs that they had have been limited to what, 50,000 or so, which, pays for the study, doesn't pay for the generator. So we did ask them to look at that, and they said they would. I also had a couple of discussions, one with Minister Flack, who's now Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the associate minister there is Graydon Smith, and he's responsible for housing. So I did speak to him a little bit about some ideas on funding, and so we're having some further discussions. So that's good. All in all, it was from the perspective of, I'm going to say, Minden and Haliburton County, it was a good meeting because we had the opportunity to speak to lots of ministers and at least get some things onto their agenda, whether it is item 1 on their agenda or item 640, we don't know. But we've had the conversations, and the follow-up can be directed to that. Deputy Mayor Shell, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Well, I wasn't part of any of the actual delegations because I just wasn't. I found it to be, compared to Roma, I would go to Roma 100 times over again. The thing I found about AMO is because they're such larger municipalities that really they don't really have the same difficulties, et cetera, that we do. So, I mean, it was after 19 years, I made my first trip to AMO, but I'm not sure that I'll return. I think the most exciting thing for me was having Jamie and Andrew take us through Parliament. So that was pretty fun. And of course, there's always the networking with people that, that are on councils and that kind of thing. I probably find that more interesting than any of the sessions, because I think that Roma actually has more plenary sessions. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I'm sure it was the delegation portion of things was well worth the trip. But
Yeah, I think it's a good point in terms of the plenary sessions, because so many of the plenary sessions are set up at AMO for larger municipalities with, bigger problems. So that's really all I had for the mayor's report. I will note that this is coming to you on a rainy Thursday. I don't know that I was going to ever say those words again, but it is raining finally here, and we have a long weekend coming up. So everybody enjoy themselves and stay safe. I'm sure we will hear a little bit more about AMO from Councillor Saini and a report on the Roma board. Yep, go ahead.
So at the county meeting yesterday, there was a presentation on development charges study.
Yep.
It seemed to be indicating that it's happening for all the lower tiers as well, and I'm not sure I remembered that, but anyways, what's happened? Like, are we paying for that? Is the county paying for it?
So-
Should we not be talking about it here?
Yeah. So I can't remember even when it started, this study, but it was some years ago.
3 years ago, I think
Yeah.
they said, yes.
And one of the first things that came up from starting to talk about development charges was you needed to have as part of any submissions, you needed to have an assessment and projections on your growth. And so the county went out and, was it Watson who did that also? Okay, so Watson did that study, which was presented to us about a year ago or so, which gave, the official view of the growth of the four municipalities and the county. I'm not certain that I necessarily agreed with all their conclusions, but the thing is, there had to be a study that was done by a, I don't know what the best word is, by somebody who is designated to be able to do those studies. So that had to be done. So that was done. Now we're in this next stage, as you saw yesterday, where it was brought up on all of the factors that are involved in trying to develop these development charges. So they are going to come back to us with a little bit more detail on all of that. There's nothing that says that. Well, first of all, development charges can be done at the municipality. They can also be done at the county. But there's nothing that has been done or decided that says that we will go ahead with development charges in the individual municipalities, or that we will, use the same numbers as everybody else. But this work is being done through the county to get us to the next stage. And that's where we're at. Councillor McKelvey?
So it can't be the same numbers. It's a very detailed study on the costs that this township has compared to Dysart or
Yep.
whatever it might be.
Yep.
I just question, shouldn't we be discussing this here before the county spends money on this, and then we don't even, I'm just saying, we may not have an interest in this. It just seems to be something that's happening and it won't be implemented. Or it may not be implemented. I just don't understand. And again, back to the cost, is the county going to pay for our development charges study?
I can't remember what the split is.
No.
No, because we didn't get it.
Well, yeah, that was another issue that it wasn't on the agenda ahead of time, so.
Oh, yeah, we
The
did get the report.
presentation.
Yes.
I just think some thought needs to be put into this at the lower tiers. Cause I could tell the feelings in the room just watching. I don't think you're gonna see Dysart implement development charges. So then why are we doing this? And has Minden Hills even discussed that we want to do this, or?
I think the idea was to get all the facts and figures to be able to, make an informed decision.
Well, that's a very expensive informed. I don't know. Can our CIO elaborate perhaps?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I can't elaborate at this point, but perhaps what I can do is follow up with my counterpart. It sounds like this has been on the books for quite some time. And perhaps what I can recommend to my colleagues is that if we've got to a stage where we outline what a development charges study is, the process, potential costs, before we move forward, there's a report to this council, an update to this council.
Fair enough. Councillor McKelvey?
So the other thing that was discussed yesterday was the credit cards via US Bank, and I applaud you for your comment that we shouldn't be supporting this. However, we are buying stuff from the United States in this township, and I think it's a direction we need to give to our staff that that's not something we should be doing.
What? Yeah, I don't disagree. Funny, I had this discussion yesterday at my home also. Unfortunately, there's some things that are only available from the US, and then in other cases, there's a huge cost difference. So I think, in general, we're trying not to buy. I think we should be not trying to buy from the US, but I think we have to evaluate it. I don't think we can make a blanket statement that don't buy anything from the US
Can we at least do some kind of a statement that encourages that not be done? Unless there's really good justification presented to the CIO and she approves it.
Well, let's turn that over to the CAO to have her come back, because I think if we have this situation is probably most in roads and, well, even in community services and so on. So maybe we can come back and see
There's,
what some of the issues are.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, if I'm understanding correctly, I think with this, or what is being suggested is that we buy Canadian wherever possible. And in the event that, as you state, cost difference is significant, or the product is just not available in our country, then yes, I would review and approve. But I think what I'm hearing is strong direction to buy from our own country, and we're happy to take that direction.
Yeah, I think the only issue is on RFPs that, you've got certain rules and laws that you have to follow there too, right? So I think the direction is buy Canadian, but we have to
For
stay
sure.
within all the rules and what we can afford
Regulations.
and what's available. Councilor Ingram?
Through the chair, having worked in the water and sewer department, probably 80% of the product comes from the States. It's just the nature of the beast. That being said, there are still suppliers in Canada, and I think we need to let Aqua know as well.
Sure.
To try and buy Canadian, along with us. Thank you.
Councilor McKelvey?
so I just want to make sure this comes back, or like, should we be passing a resolution today? Should we be getting something back from our CIO at the next meeting? Like, some of these purchases have been in community services, some of them have been in the fire department. So it's just, I just want to make sure that our thoughts here are.
So I think your thoughts are captured for sure. I want to take a bit of a look at our procurement policy as well. To just look at how we could potentially word that and stay within the laws of public procurement.
Okay. Councilor Saini, Roma?
Thank you. It was a long 5 days at the AMO conference, and it did start with the Roma Board of Directors meeting for us. There were many things that I'd like to just talk about. But to get a sense of that meeting with over 3,000 of your closest municipal friends across Ontario is always quite an experience. But it was even more different this year than other years. You could tell that feeling of buy Canadian. You could tell that feeling of how do we begin to address our municipal level of governance better? How do we deal with the Strong Mayors Act? A lot of those kinds of conversations don't necessarily happen within meetings. They happen at the meetings afterwards, at the discussions in the hallway, just to give people the sense of how information spreads, how you start to learn things, not just through the workshops, which are very valuable, but also through all the people that you're meeting from all the different regions of Ontario, and comparing issues and comparing them in a way that makes sense in terms of creating policies to go forward locally as well as provincially. The conference, aside from that, our beginning Roma board meeting, where we also met with the Minister of Rural Affairs, Lisa Thompson, who is always got an ear to the ground wherever she goes. And you can tell that not just by her demeanor, but by her questions and then by her openness and discussions, willing to take criticism and find solutions was always really rewarding. We hope to be meeting with her as well in the next meeting. We also at our board meeting met with Minister Flack, who is the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and had a great meeting with him as well. So that was kind of the beginning. And there's also a very kind of different feeling. I'm trying to give you a feeling because we can get into specifics, but in terms of parties working together, it seemed like there was more willingness to find solutions instead of battling parties. I mean, the issues are there and different parties are raising different issues in different ways, but there is really that kind of camaraderie that is really important to be effective in terms of how we move forward, especially in these times that we're facing. And speaking of the times we're facing, the conference also began with a welcoming at the plenary by Andrew Coyne. I wish that was taped. It was an amazing analysis with no hold bar in terms of the language he used to describe the situation to the south and the leadership there. And we are standing very strong. I listened to Ford talk as well later in the conference, and he seemed more relaxed than I've ever seen him in terms of speaking to the issues, in terms of trying to do the right thing and moving forward. So there was really a camaraderie there that it was more people than ever, but a stronger Ontario than I've ever seen working together in spite of all the issues that we have and always trying to work through them. So we had two delegations as the Roma board there. One of the delegations was with the Ministry of Health, I should say, Anthony Leardy. I'm going to pronounce that wrong, Leardy. It was very good, but we were looking particularly at the particular access to primary care and focusing on that. We also were concerned about the Hunger Games, we called them. The Hunger Games are where, and we have been asked at this council as well, to put forward some money to make it more attractive for a doctor to come to the area. We've been asked at the county level, which has been doing that in other areas. We were asked by the clinic in Kinmount, can we put forward some money to bring some people into our area as doctors? But everybody's doing that, and that's not what our tax money should be for. And so we addressed that. We call it the Hunger Games. We're saying we've got to stop this competition between municipalities. We need more doctors. We need more primary care, but we can't be diverting municipal dollars, undermining health equity. And we need to be equity across the board. And we need to do that without competing for those doctors with our tax money. So that was an important issue, I think, that we raised and made clear. The other thing we look forward to is meeting with Dr. Philpott, the Minister of Health, as well as Minister of Health, and later in our in the fall, we hope. And just to say, there just is not a sufficient funds for a health team and only provides funding for staffing. So some of the money that came forward just for staffing, if you don't have the building and you can't really create an equity when you're all dealing with different kinds of marbles, right? So it's like, how do we get health team across for everybody? Rural communities are increasingly facing pressure to allocate property tax dollars towards attracting healthcare workers and keeping emergency departments open. But this is beyond the scope of the mandate and puts increasing pressure on our property tax base. So that's why we are arguing those points. We also are looking to find ways to encourage more physicians to come to rural areas. So we had a very good discussion about that and why people are not coming to our areas when they become a doctor. How do we bring even possibly more foreign trained physicians into the area? And how do we then encourage them and integrate them into our communities and welcome them? I think that the Kinmount example of the community organizations and the volunteers there working to bring doctors in is a very good example. They make sure social, what people are looking for in their community is there for the doctors they're bringing in. And of course we raised, so why aren't people coming? I mean, it's a beautiful place. The minister thought, why aren't people coming here? And part of it is that professional development piece where people want to become specialists. So there was a great discussion about how do we make policy to bring more people, particularly physicians, into the rural areas as opposed to just migrating to the urban areas. So that was our focus with Roma to some extent. So that work is going to be continuing. And the other delegation that we had was on the municipal affairs and housing again, and discussion, two particular areas we highlighted. One was, of course, the homelessness, and the other was fiscal sustainability. And we cannot keep covering the cost, for example, of the OPP. We appreciated that the OPP costs were partially covered last year by the province when we had that big increase, but we're going to get hit again with that, and that OPP cost recovery model just is not going to work for us. And the downloading will continue, and we have to stop that because the taxes can't meet the cost of living increases or the cost of what's being downloaded in municipalities. So there's going to be some ongoing discussions about that as well. AMO's also done some analysis that shows municipalities across Ontario face a 1.8 billion fiscal impact from 2025 to 2026 due to the ongoing trade war, which we just talked about. So this was something that were top of mind as well in the formal and informal conversations. And so to be continued on how that's going to pan out for all of us. The ongoing discussions also included things like the Strong Mayors Act and beginning to see all sides of that issue. Certainly is a strong disagreement we have between whether we need that act or not. I think there's room for discussion. As people know, I do not like the Strong Mayors Act. And there were gatherings to discuss why, both formally and informally. But we do have to find some more stability in how we manage our municipalities, and more training and more understanding of how tax dollars work and how they don't work. And so this is going to be ongoing, and how decisions are made and how management takes place and the roles of council. So that was some very intense conversations, but it was great to hear these stories from across Ontario. I think there was some good-heartedness in terms of the province coming out with the Strong Mayors Act, but I think they were looking at it from their point of view. But when you're looking at it from a municipal point of view and democracy at this level, it's not quite the right way to go, to say the least. So I think we need to continue those discussions. There's lots of trade shows when you're there. There are hundreds of people there at the trade shows. Part of what I try to do there is running around and looking at all these new products is think, okay, this would be good with this business in our community. So I try to, take those cards, and it doesn't go through this municipality per se or this council, but to take that information to some of our trades and businesses in the area saying, are you familiar with this resource? Because it's so rich there. And I'll just highlight, this was brought to my attention. As I was going by, I thought these were licorice. And there's always new products that you learn about at these. And these are actually fiberglass, and they're used in construction as opposed to steel. So I brought these for our building department. Eric, you can have these. Don't chew on them. They're fiberglass, but they're stronger than steel. So we're looking at new products, and where are these products coming from? Are they coming from Canada, or are they coming from overseas? So these are the things that we can start to look for on how we do things alternatively. Very rich conference. Really happy to have been there. It was overload, and I would agree that the Roma conference is a better conference for our rural areas, because it's not just at our Roma board meetings and our delegations that we can focus on the uniqueness of the rural, but it's through the whole conference. So there's more to say, but I'm going to stop there unless there's any questions. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to correspondence and communications. Councillor Johannesson has requested item 11.6 be pulled forward for discussion. But Madam Deputy Clerk, please proceed with reading the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, that council directs correspondence and communication item 11.6 be pulled for discussion.
All those in favor? It's carried. So you have another resolution?
I do. Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey, that council receives correspondence and communication items 11.1 to 11.5 and 11.7 as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. 11.6. Counselor Johansson.
If I may, I would like to add that I wholeheartedly support the Elect Her initiative and would like to confirm a commitment to advancing women's representation and political leadership across her communities. Elect Her has made a meaningful impact by helping women, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds. This initiative is able to build their skills, confidence, and connections that will help us run for office and lead effectively. I have seen firsthand how empowering the representation and workshops can be, and I believe it's a crucial step toward creating a more inclusive and representative political landscape. With our support, we can help Elect Her reach even more women, offer additional training opportunities, and foster a culture of leadership that values diversity and fairness. Our support would send a powerful message about the importance of gender fairness and leadership.
So what would you like us to do? So we through a resolution or do you already have something? Good. Sure. Go ahead.
Just wondering what we're doing, like, if we're gonna match exactly what their resolution was, or if we're going to just do a general that we're supporting the Elect Respect pledge. Because if we follow their resolution, we're going to end up sending this out to
Right.
everybody in their first and second child and
I've updated it, but I just included our local MPPs, AMO and the OPP. AMO, FCM, local MP, MPP, and OPP. It's up to you.
You know, it either comes down to us just doing one general one saying we support them, or do we reinforce all of the points by stating them?
Yep.
Counselor Saney?
Yes, it sounds right. I would suggest that we support it as suggested, but also send it to our MPs and to AMO and the originator of this, and not to the whole everybody. We don't need more, flashes across the screen. I became aware of this organization a few years ago and recommended it to others who are coming on new on council. And it is really important, and to hear some of the stories that we don't understand why people don't run sometimes, and to hear those stories and to encourage people from diverse backgrounds to get involved and to make a difference has really changed the culture of municipalities across this province. And hers is one of many organizations that has done that. And it's online, it's accessible. So I just want to encourage people.
Okay.
And so if we could just make the motion that we send it limited out, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sorry, Deputy Michelle, did you have a comment?
Sorry, my suggestion was just going to be that because Counselor Johannesson had brought it forward, maybe whatever. Did you have a thought of how you wanted it to go forward, or you just sort of like, do you want exactly what's there verbatim, or do you want it?
Okay.
And perhaps, Mr. Mayor, the deputy clerk, I think, has drafted something that might be a starting point.
Okay, I have that we will receive it for information, and we could add that a letter of support be developed and will be circulated to the local MP and PP.
That's reasonable. Okay, we need a mover and a seconder. So, Councilor Hannison, Deputy Mayor Shell.
So just need a moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, moved by Councillor Johannesson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell, that council receives correspondence and communication item 11.6 from the Township of West Lincoln, support of HER Elect Respect campaign as information, and that a letter of support be developed and circulated to local MP and MPP.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. All right, after being severely admonished yesterday, we will take a break until 10:16. And so that will be the full 15 minutes. And we can get back Welcome back. We start with community services. Ms. McWigan, please start when you're ready.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So before you is Report 2517, the Enhancing Access to Spaces for Everyone grant opportunity. The EASE grant is to enhance the quality of life of people with disabilities and older adults by supporting them to live active, healthy, safe, and socially connected lives. We have submitted a grant application for SG Nesbitt Memorial Arena for 10 areas with accessible buttons and then 2 areas requiring the washroom emergency call center and button system. The funding status of the notification will be between November and December 2025, where work can start commence in November 2025. The maximum amount is 60,000 per recipient, covering 100% of the eligible costs. Completion of the work needs to be done by September 30th, 2026.
Is this a provincial grant or where's the money come from?
So it's a provincial.
The provincial program. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Saini?
Just a comment of, let's really hope this gets funded because this really has to be done, whether it's funded or not. And we don't really have the budget. So thank you for applying to this. Thank you.
Councillor McKelvey?
For the 10 areas for the buttons and the 2 areas for the call system, do you have an idea what that will cost?
Yes, so it is just under the 60,000 threshold, so we maxed out, we went for the most amount in the grant.
That's great. I'm like Councillor Saini that it's kind of sad that it wasn't done when they built the facility to meet current at the time standards, but I'm glad we're gonna get it done.
Any other questions? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Sisson, that council receive report 25-17 Community Services Department Enhancing Access to Spaces for Everyone grant opportunity as information.
All those in favor? That is carried.
I just wanted to say that when we rented the arena for my our son's wedding dance this weekend, and Johnny had been there to help me, and I got a firsthand look at the new Olympia. Does everybody realize the new Olympia is here? It is very nice, and staff are very happy. They were like little kids with a new toy. They were so excited. So anyway,
Did we get the flame decals on the side? All right, thank you. Building and bylaw, Mr. Gray.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. What you have before you is report 25023. It's an update on the rehab of the Minden Library and Cultural Center, the retaining wall and entrance ramp. The Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, which is ICIP, is a cost-shared infrastructure funding program between the federal government, provinces and territories, and recipients. And in this case, this would be the township who is the recipient. This program will see more than $30 billion in combined federal, provincial, and other partner funding under 4 priority areas, which would, for our intents and purposes, includes our community, culture, and recreation. The allocation of grant funds to projects within the Township of Minden Hills will assist with the township in achieving its goal of Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act compliance. So in November of 2021, the Township of Minden Hills entered into an agreement with the Ministry of Infrastructure to secure grant funding provided by the federal and provincial governments for accessibility upgrades to 4 township facilities. At the time, those were the Minden Library and Cultural Center, Lockland Community Center, Irondale Community Center, and the Minden Curling Club. The federal government has provided 40% of the funding. The provincial government has provided 33.33% of the funding, and the Township of Minden Hills has provided 26.67% of the funding. So there's a bit of an error here. The grant funding has a deadline of March 31st, 2028. The March 31st, 2027 deadline is for expenses. So anything that's incurred post March 31st, 2027 will not be eligible expense. Just so everybody's aware of the timelines. The province of Ontario contributed 298,970.10 Federal government was 358,008, and the township's contribution was 239,229 for a total of $897,000. So the intention here is to progress with the Minden Library Cultural Center project, as it seems to be the one that is of higher priority than everything else that's out there. The issue we're having there is that the current retaining wall that holds back the access ramp leading into the library is slowly moving away from the facility itself, which is causing us some issues. Now, staff have measured the movement in 6 different locations along the wall. And since earlier this year since November of last year to May of this year, the wall at certain points between points 3 and 6 has moved from 1/2 inch to 1.75 inches away. So the frost heave that we're meeting and seeing in the wintertime is causing it some significant issues as well. The gable entry structure, the posts that are holding up the gable entry structure have not been put to below frost levels. So they are part of the ramp. So as the ramp moves, they move with it. So the whole point of this is to make sure that we're trying to allocate the funds where they're deemed to be most crucial at this point. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
So when would you be doing this work? Is it like, are you looking to do this in the next weeks, or how is this?
No.
work?
So through the mayor, no. So the what we're looking to do right now is to get approval to get the engineering done. And the work would probably commence next year at some time. That would be probably, it's not an imminent danger, but it is a situation that will develop and get worse over time.
Okay. Councillor Sam?
Yes, thank you. Glad that this is going forward. Fully support. We need to do this work. But my concern is, I've been around long enough to see when we had a little tiny library there and before this building was even built. And we're already dealing with some things that still need address, that were needing address before this building was built. Particularly around engineering of roofs and this retaining wall. Are the same engineers who designed this that isn't working, not that many years ago, relatively speaking, going to be the same engineers who are going to be proposing something that we're going to have to upgrade? Because I think we need to start looking at a different engineer's report. If we're doing this, when you see buildings that have been out there 100 years or more that are still working, and we're having to do this within my time on council, it's not right. We need a different engineer or better designs. I don't know what the answer is, but we got to expect more from our engineers and our installations. So that's my concern of doing this, because we have other things that have been pressing much longer that could require money as well. Thank you.
Did you tell me? You put your microphone. Okay. Councilman Kelby.
So we've already hired Tatum for the curling club roof at 18,700, the library cultural center roof at 18,800. And now we're proposing 20,300 for them with this ramp. Like, would we have been better to put, it's too late now, I get that, but would we not have been better to kind of put all these together and say, we need an engineering service? Because the other thing I'm concerned about is that I know that there's something coming about the office staff entrances out here and the emergency exit thing. So it's going to be to hire more engineers. I'm just thinking we needed to get this a little better organized. I mean, if Tatum's going to do all these other ones, I would hope they could, that this is their really best price. I mean, they're going to be up here looking at the roof of the same building that they're going to look at the ramp. we really need to know also that the funding's gonna be allowed to go to this, because when you start dealing with that ramp and that retaining wall, I'm not sure the total expenditures are gonna be allowed to even cover it. Like, that's huge, isn't it?
Through the mayor, absolutely. It's a big project. Absolutely.
So the other thing is that I don't think the funding pays for the grant or pays for the engineering, just my past experience with OCIF funding, they don't pay for the engineering services. And I think if you go back to the original application that Minden put in, they excluded the engineering, so.
Go ahead.
So a couple of things, and Councillor McKelvey, you bring up a very good point, and so does Councillor Saney. So in terms of the grant application, we have reviewed it. It is very clear that staffing, if engineers are on staff, that is not covered. So, moving forward with this, your point is well taken, and we're looking at, as part of our budget process moving forward, having discussion with council. Our facilities areas have been almost non-existent in our budgets. And so, to your point, rather than doing one-off engineering studies, I think we need to get a lot more coordinated on the major components within our facilities. I think right now we want to move this grant that's been sitting sort of idle. We want to get going on at least some of the projects that were covered under this grant. Thank you.
I think also the point, and I assume you're discussing it with the CAOs and the county is looking at bringing in engineering resource that would be available through the county. I'm not sure exactly on the timing, but I expect that they want to put it into this year's budget. So, that's a resource that could be used also. So, Councillor Sisson.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention the Irondale Hall because I know there's a ramp there and I don't believe the ramp is wide enough up to code. So I strongly suggest that we look into definitely into the Irondale ramp.
Go ahead.
So to Councillor Sisson's comment, yes, there were other projects this grant. And I think right now we want to move this one forward, but we're not neglecting the other ones. I think part of it is because this grant has sat idle for so long, we're not sure how much we're going to be able to accomplish under the grant.
But having said that, I assume that all this AODA and all of the rules that are coming forward over the next couple of years, that these projects are going to have to get done.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, these projects are going to have to be done, and there is other funding available. I think the fact that we need to start spending the funding that we've already got is the priority right now.
Okay. Any other, Councillor Saney?
Thank you, through the mayor. There are other buildings that need to be done that aren't listed here, so supporting this motion. But I'm concerned too about our downtown sidewalks and entrances and the kinds of ways that we could be making that more accessible that I've seen done in other communities. And I think somewhere we got to keep that on our agenda as we look at what we're going for and what we're doing here, what money we could use where and where the priorities are. We haven't really had that discussion, I don't think. And this was in November of 2021 that this was decided. So we've got to bring this up to par, I think, in terms of our discussions.
Councillor Ingram?
Through the chair, to what Councillor Saney just said there, I think some of that information will come from our new Make Minden Great Again group. So that will help because we've asked them, basically the business owners, to prioritize what they would like to see in town. There's no money set aside yet, but they are coming up with ideas. So I think that.
I concur. I'm not really certain on the name, but Councillor McKelvey?
So the original application that went in for this specifically said engineering building plans are ineligible costs, and it was $15,000. So I don't think we're going to get this covered. I'm not saying we can't do this. I think we absolutely have to. It will be just awful if we lose this kind of money in funding. Like, we just can't. But I just don't want anybody to think that this is going to get covered, because it's not. So we need to look at where this is going to come from. And I guess at this point, we just have to agree that we're going to hire. The recommendation is to hire Tatum, and I just hope, we hired Tatum in June. We have not tendered the roof for the cultural center or the curling club, and I thought we were going to get that done. So are they going to be the right one? And I'm not against Tatum. I just want, time is of the essence here. We have huge amount of money that's available to us that has been sitting here for a long time, and we need to make the move.
Any other questions?
Is there any other answers? Before we get to the next question? Like, I need to know Tatum's going to get this done now, because we had been told in June that we would get the tenders out for the roofs, and that didn't happen. And we're end of August, and ice goes in the curling club here soon, so.
Through the mayor, so the engineering is in the process of being completed. It should be terminated shortly. And then we will be putting the RFT out for the curling club. And then we'll look at the cultural center as the next step as well. But this pardon me, this funding here has to do with accessibility. It's not for facility upgrades.
Councillor Sani?
I am extremely concerned about our cultural center. We can't get through another winter. It has to be done before winter. The situation that we have there, the precious art that people are bringing in and displaying, our staff mopping the floor, the water coming not just from the roof, but up from the floor as well. It's not safe. I saw water coming down through the electrical outlets. This is an emergency practically. I don't think we can just go status quo in terms of how we're trying to organize this, because it's gotten to, in my opinion, to a crisis point at that cultural center and that roofing. We need to have something done to protect that building right away, or be planning on building a brand new one really quick. That's the point that I saw with that building through the winter. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on this point? Councilor McKelvey?
I guess my question is, the answer isn't being given. Like, first of all, the curling, like, if we're going to put the tender out for the curling club while they're putting in ice, like, the prices are just going to be ridiculous. The same as this place was put out with a, fall tender that had to be done by the end of November. The prices were ridiculous. Only 2, I think, bids. They didn't do it in November. Like, I just don't want to set us up for failure here and I keep bringing this back because it's the same engineer. In June, we authorized the engineering for the curling club roof, the library cultural center roof, and maybe that's unreasonable to expect that we would have had tenders out by now, but there's no use of sending tenders out in September. So are they really going to be able to do this in a timely fashion? I do not want to lose this funding. I mean, that would just be awful. So I need to know that they're going to do this.
Through the mayor, I cannot speak for Tatham. They are a large engineering firm with lots of projects on the go, but they have committed to doing things, and we will hold them accountable for that commitment.
Mr. Mayor, just to to address the other two projects, let me take that offline with our staff and with the engineering firm. I think we're hearing loud and clear, can't go through another winter, spring. So what is the contingency plan? And or are we coming back to council and requesting the ability to move quicker than a tendering process? So let me take that offline and review with staff and the engineer.
Councillor McKelvey.
So just on that note, like it, and I agree with Councillor Saney, we have valuable artwork in there and the roof is leaking. It's not just in there. The roof is leaking in the library. They had to move all the computers away from the wall last year because the roof, it was pouring in. So, like it's not just a little drip, it's a significant leak. And we've had this in our budget for, I don't know how many years before I even got here, and here we are, end of August of 25. And we have concerns about timing.
Okay. Councillor Saney.
Thank you. I appreciate that this be discussed with the staff and what we can do. I think the urgency is understood. But I do have a concern about who were the designers of, for example, the library and the cultural center. If we're hiring the same engineers to design the correction to what we already had done. So I don't know if Tatum was the original designers or not.
I don't think
They
so.
weren't, okay.
Mhm.
So we just want to make sure that, you know, what we're doing is right this time, because it's a shame that we have to redo this so soon and that we're in this dire strait right now with this new building. Thank you.
Okay, so CAO will come back with a report next meeting.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't commit that it'll be the next meeting, but we will expedite our update to council as quickly as possible.
Okay. Any other questions about this issue? Please read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell, that report 2025-023, building bylaw rehabilitation of the Minden Library Cultural Center, retaining wall and entrance ramps be received for information, and that council directs staff to contract the services of Tatham Engineering to provide all-inclusive engineering services for the accessibility ramp and retaining wall located at the Minden Library Cultural Center at a cost of $20,300 plus HST.
All those in favor? That is carried.
Mr. Mayor. Oh, so you go.
I'm sorry. I believe this is Mr. Gay's last meeting. Correct? I just wanted maybe on behalf, maybe the mayor could just thank you for everything we missed.
Yes, you absolutely will. Your presence and some of the issues, including commandeering propane deliveries during the emergency, were especially above and beyond the call of duty. So we wish you all good fortune and good luck in your new positions, and remember us here to the north.
Thank you. I much appreciate the opportunity you presented to me, and I wish you all well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, if I can just tag on behalf of staff in the community, we'd like to wish Mr. Gay all the best. We are not going to let him go totally away, though. He drives by here every day. And so we find ourselves his last week being a week that a lot of people are away. So he has agreed to come and do a bit of a send off in a few weeks once he's settled. So
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Saney.
I just have to add, if I may, to the mayor's comments, that it has been a great pleasure to work with you. Your professionalism, your knowledge, and your in-depth and really explaining things to people as well was beyond expectations in many ways. And I've gotten comments back from the public as well about that. And I might even add, I had comments back from the public about how you work so well between you as a building inspector and the deputy inspector and how closely you work together and how you seem like a team. So that's just comments I got back from the public as well. And I just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure and I'll miss you. And I'm going to find out where you're driving by. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I know that you'll be in good hands with our DCBO for now, and hopefully you'll find the right fit for the next person coming in. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Moving on to planning and development. Ms. Doherty, please commence when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I believe the first report is for the public meeting item just earlier this morning. I don't have anything further to add. I believe DM Wills is still on the line if there are questions, though.
All right, are there any questions on this? Seeing none, we'll read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell, that council receive report 25-58 planning for information, and that bylaw 25-81 being a bylaw to adopt a zoning bylaw amendment for the land subject to PLZBA 2025062 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried. So we have a consent agenda for deeming reports 12.5.2 to 12.5.4. There's two motions for consent in the planning section of the agenda. The first motion is to address deeming by law applications, and the second is for SRA applications. As there are no requests to pull applications forward for discussion, Madam Deputy Clerk, please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor McKelvey, that council receive the following reports and applications as information, and further that these lots be deemed not to be part of a registered plan of subdivision for 25-60 PLDBL 2025063 J. Pelly, Lot 9, Registered Plan 208, 2561 PLDBL 2025064 J and K Pelly, Lot 8, Registered Plan 208, 25-62 PLDBL 2025070 Halliburton Highlands Health Services Corporation, Block A of Plan 593, and Lot 63 and 64 of Plan 172. And further, that council refers deeming bylaws 25-82, 25-83, and 25-84 to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried. Shore Road allowance applications. As there are no requests to pull applications for discussion, Madam Deputy Clerk, please read the resolution regarding the sale of Shore Road allowance applications.
Moved by Councillor Sisson, seconded by Councillor McKelvey, that council receive the following sale of Shore Road allowance applications and planning reports as information. 25-63 PLSRA 2021012 Gervais, 25-64 PLSRA 2024021 Clark, 2565 PLSRA 2024027 Caldwell, and further that council refers bylaws 25-85, 25-86, and 25-87 to the bylaw section of the agenda to stop up, close, and convey part of an original Shore Road allowance with respect to the said applications.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Ms. Doherty.
Thank you.
We will now move into closed session. Just for everybody's knowledge, what is left of our agenda and open is really administrative matters. But feel free to stay online and tune in. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor McKelvey, be it resolved that council proceed into closed session at 10:44 a.m. for the purpose of discussing the following. Two items in accordance to section 2392D of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, regarding labor relations or employee negotiations, performance matters, and personnel matters.
All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Ingram, for getting us started. All right, welcome back. We start with a report from closed session. Or actually, sorry, open session resumed. Not yet.
Moved by Councillor Sisson, seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Be it resolved that closed session adjourned at 12:07 PM and open session resumed.
All those in favor? That is carried. Closed session report. There was, I don't know if there was direction. Okay, we can move the bylaws. Yep, go ahead, read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor Ingram, seconded by Councillor Saney. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be received and read a first time, considered read a second time and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed. Bylaw 25-81, zoning bylaw amendment, PLZBA 2025062 Ezer. Bylaw 2582, deeming bylaw, PLDBL 2025063 Pelly. Bylaw 25-83, deeming bylaw, PLDBL 2025064 Pelly. Bylaw 25-84, deeming bylaw, PLDBL 2025070 HHHS. Bylaw 25-85, SRA PL SRA 2021012 Gervais. Bylaw 25-86 SRA PL SRA 2024021 Clark. Bylaw 2587 SRA PL SRA 2024027 Caldwell. And bylaw 25-91 to appoint an interim chief building official.
All those in favor? That is carried. Confirming bylaw?
Moved by Councillor Saney, seconded by Councillor Johannesson, that bylaw 25-92 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held during its meeting of August 28, 2025, be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with corporate seal.
All those in favor? That is carried. Adjournment?
Moved by Counselor Sani, seconded by Counselor Johansson. Be it resolved, the August 28, 2025 regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 12:09 PM.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everybody. The next council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 11th at 9 a.m. Enjoy your long weekend and stay safe.